I mean, throughout this whole conversation, I know that being a startup or being in a small business where you are the main person that's delivering services, it can always feel so nerve-wracking.
Because it's a new business. They have to put themselves out there, but you don't want to do it too much either. How can you balance that?
That is that is the most emotional hurdle I feel like business owners go through, right? Because you need the sales, you've gambled, you've gone part-time on your job or you've quit your job. So one thing is
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. In our earlier episodes, we have explored the journey of starting a company, the financial aspects of entrepreneurship, and much more. But today, we are diving into a game changing topic: sales and marketing strategies. Joining us is Professor Chelsea Fan, a renowned marketing expert, also affectionately known as Marketing Goblin. Her data driven approach to market research, strategic planning, and advertising has helped businesses achieve powerful organic growth. So get ready to take some incredible notes today, because this episode is packed with insights you won't want to miss. And if you already have not subscribed, this is a perfect time to hit that subscribe button. Thank you. So let's welcome our guest today. Hello, Professor Fan. Welcome to Infinite Icons.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. You can always just call me Chelsea. And I'm really happy to be here. I love the subject of marketing and advertising and sales and how it intertwines within businesses. I have spent a little background on me. I've spent my career primarily working with startups and small businesses, and only have recently started shifting into the world of academia, which I find very fulfilling because I essentially get to continue my consultation with a broader audience, with people that do need that one-on-one like mentorship. So that's always fun and exciting. And I work at two different universities, Irvine Valley College and Sophia University, where I teach social media marketing, the MBA level marketing course, which is a lot more rigorous, innovations and opportunities, and creativity and idea generation.
Awesome. That's so wonderful, and we'll have so many things to discuss today. I'm excited.
Mhm.
So, to start with, let's say we registered our company and we are ready to go. So,
Mhm.
what's the first thing I should be looking at for marketing my company? What should be my first step now?
I think the first step is, and this is going to always sound redundant because every marketer is always going to give this advice, which is know your audience. It becomes so critical. And the thing is it's not just like, oh, I know my audience in my head, but actually writing it down and transcribing it and writing down your assumptions about who's going to be buying your product, who's going to be buying your service, as well as people that you don't actually want to work with, right? And writing that out, not just for yourself, but also for the future growth of the company, right? Because then you can test your assumptions. You can pull different levers throughout your advertising and marketing strategies to really challenge those assumptions, right? And that way you're not just going with a gut instinct. And then as your business is growing, with that documented target audience, and you bring on a new employee or an intern, or so basically offloading the marketing responsibilities, you'll actually be able to communicate to them who your target audience is and give them something that's like a little bit more physical, a little bit more tangible. And that's what's really going to support a business that is just now starting off. That being said, when I talk about target audience, I don't just mean the demographics. Are they male or women? Of what age are they, right? One of the most common mistakes that I hear business owners, or even very new marketers make is they're like, well, anyone can buy this product. Yes, anyone can buy this product, but a 25-year-old woman is going to have in Southern California, is going to have slightly different motivators and different ways of converting, aka like how you talk to them is going to be different than how you talk to, let's say, a 65 male in New York. Right? There's different like microcultures, different ways of talking, even within generations. And so you want to be more specific, even if you say like, well, anyone can buy this, right? Let's say it's a number 2 pencil. Anyone can buy a number 2 pencil. Even my toddler has used a number 2 pencil, right? But I'm going to break up that demographic based off of usage, right? How are people using it? And if I have different variations of a product, let's say I have a pink pencil, then I'm going to, that's like more flowery and got cutesy designs on it, right? I'm going to push that towards the female demographic, while my like race cars or my like sleek pencils are going to be maybe pushed towards males. And then as I'm saying this, I always warn my students and my clients that you do have to be aware of assumptions. You have to be aware of biases, unconscious biases, right? And so once again, by documenting who you think is going to be purchasing your product or service and documenting their motivators and kind of really segmenting them out, you'll actually be able to challenge your assumptions, right? You might find out that actually, no, the people that are buying the number 2 pencil that's really like corporate-y and sleek are actually women entering the workforce, right? Because they're trying to appear more professional. Or you could find out that hot pink pencil, you're having a lot of younger men buy it because of the Barbie movie. Because after the Barbie movie, men were actually starting to wear a lot more hot pink. And so that might have been something that occurs that once again challenges those assumptions.
Right, that's so true. Usually, we entrepreneurs start off with a very wide range of target audience. So we actually get lost. So, how do we actually reduce and go very specific? And also, how do we start doing the research? Where do we start? And practically, how does it work?
So I'm going to address one thing first. So whenever we talk about finding your niche or niche, depending on where you are in the States, you're going to pronounce it differently. When we're talking about finding your target audience, it's not saying no to everyone else. All it is saying not yet. Right. So if I'm starting my number 2 pencil business, and I really want to go for that corporate look, right, or corporate audience, I'm not saying no to my college students. I'm not saying no to the high school students that need pencils, and I'm not saying no to the grandmas and grandpas. All I'm saying is not yet. Let me get these people first. Let me know how to target them and and how they're going to convert into not just customers, one-time customers, but loyal fans. And then from there, expand to the next group. And then from there, expand to the next group, so on and so forth. And that's how you kind of build your empire. Your Rome wasn't built in a day, and Rome was built by conquering region after region, city after city. And so if you look at it from the marketing perspective, you're applying that same principle. But to answer your question on how to do this research, this is always going to be contingent on what industry you're in. So this is going to be a little bit of a generalized advice, right? So for consumer products, I am looking at what competitors are already existing in the marketplace and see who they are targeting. How many people are actually following the other pencil companies? How many other people are engaging in content? Like, I'm going to kind of look at my competitors and see what they're doing and who they are going after, and kind of get those numbers, right? So that I can at least establish a benchmark. And when I say benchmark, I mean just like that placeholder of like, well, I want to be here, right? I want to be competing with them if I'm the new startup pencil business. And then, and it'll also help me do research on who is likely to be that loyal follower, right? Because you can't get your competitor's sales data information, but you can look at their social media. And through their social media, you can see how many men versus women, what age groups are there. And when you do that type of research on social media, you want to make sure that you're pulling from all of the platforms that that company is on, and make sure that you're looking at a couple of different competitors, both big name competitors as well as maybe like smaller brands that are just a step ahead of you, right? As far as the startup business world goes, right? Then another thing that I'm going to do as far as that secondary research, because that secondary research is looking what else is out there, is I'm going to look at demographic markers within specific regions. So once again, everyone in the United States, everyone in the world could use a pencil, but I'm going to be specific. I'm going to say, you know what, let me figure out how people in California buy pencils. Like, what are their motivators? Are they thinking about the eco-friendliness of it versus somebody in Wisconsin, what their motivators are going to be, right? Or New York, what their motivators are going to be. So I'm not just going to say, oh, well, I'm going to focus on men versus women, or I'm going to focus on this age group, but I'm also going to focus on a targeted location so that I can make smart decisions in the future, so that as I get data, as I learn from my mistakes, right? As I learn from my mistakes, I can apply those principles and conquer the next region better. So you do want to kind of look at those generalized demographics. I always tell people to start small with your own county area before even trying to conquer a state. And that also has to do with money management, right? As you are spending money on ads and you're experimenting and trying to figure out which ads actually speak to which audiences, I always say start in a very concentrated area and see what you can generate within that area, and then once again expand, because it also saves you money, because you're going to spend more money trying to reach everyone in your target audience in America, right? You're going to spend tens of thousands of dollars every month at least per campaign, versus if you're starting off small within your area, if you spend even like a couple of $1,000s just focusing on this area, this county, or this region, whether it's southern or northern part of the state, you'll be able to speak to more people and get more data that's actually going to be more rich. And so that kind of leads me to the next stage of this, which is that primary research, understanding your target audience. Primary research is the information that you yourself gathered. And that's going to be from following up with people that have purchased your product, asking reviews, asking for feedback. And what's really great about startups and small businesses is they actually have a secret power. Their secret power is that emotional appeal. Going up to somebody and saying, hey, I saw that you purchased my pencil, and I'm really excited. I hope that you really like it, but I'm a startup business. I'm a small business, and I really want to improve. Can you give me some feedback? Right? And people love that. They're like, oh yeah, I'd rather help out and give feedback for a small business and take 3 minutes of my life for that person, because that 3 minutes, the individual, the consumers know that it is so much more valuable than 3 minutes given to, let's say, a bigger corporation like Walmart. So you actually have a power, and you can lean into that emotional appeal. But getting that primary research from people that have already purchased your product, or even just asking people on social media or LinkedIn and saying, hey, would you buy this? You don't have to buy it now, but would you buy it? Right? Mm-hmm. And getting that feedback that way, right? So this is where we kind of get into the secondary research is kind of where you're going to start, where you're looking at your competitors, looking at who they're targeting, how they're targeting them, the breakout of those demographics. Then you're going to look at your regional area or the area that you want to start off with. And pull that information so that you can get some hard numbers, like in Orange County, out of the I don't know the population, but 500,000 500,000 people. Out of the 500,000 people, I know that from my research, by looking at my competitor and my research that I've done in the demographics, I know that 100,000 people could potentially buy my product or service. And then from there, I'm like, okay, well, how can I get those $100,000 people? And how can I divide that up like month over month? Because it's not like, bam, snap your finger, you get them all. No, it's a long-term relationship building that you begin. So that's kind of how you do this research on finding out who your target audience is, looking at your competitors or your substitutes, then looking at your demographics and really understanding who they are in your area. And then as you move forward, getting primary data from interviewing people or asking for feedback or, leave a star review, that kind of thing.
So good. That was really cool. Yeah. And also, as you were mentioning, I was thinking of seasons, probably, for your product, the pencils, school seasons and beginning of the year for the stationery updates for the corporates. So maybe we could even think in those terms when you can actually expect a huge hike in your sales.
And that's actually a really great point. It's also saying, well, when do you want to switch gears? If corporations are making their large purchases at the end of March, let's say, and schools are making and students are making their purchases in August, September timeframe, I now know that after the school season starts, about 1 to 2 months after the school season starts, I'm going to stop my campaign, or not stop, I'm going to pull the brakes a little bit. I'm going to slow down on how much money I'm investing, and I'm going to take that extra money and put it back over. So it's kind of like you're taking some of the eggs from your school basket and putting it over into your corporate basket so you can maximize those returns if your product or service has seasonality. And I think also when it comes to service-based companies, understanding that seasonality can be a little bit difficult. For example, I used to work with a startup company that did presentation and communication skills training for corporations. And we had seasons. But at the beginning of the business, we didn't understand what seasons were there. We didn't understand what times of the year we should actually be spending more money. And only through a couple of years of gathering data did we finally understand that there was seasonality based off of like corporate quarters. But one way that we could have learned that information faster was to look at our competitors' website traffic to see if they had spikes throughout the year. If they had spikes in traffic during certain times of the month, then we would know, okay, that kind of signals that there is more demand, right? So those are ways to kind of like figure out, especially when you're on a tight budget. It takes a little extra effort, but you can, once again, pull information from your competitors. There's companies like SEMrush, which I absolutely love, and Neil Patel, which is another company where they actually give you your competitors' website traffic. They actually give you samples of what keywords or what search terms are people searching for that have led them to that website. You can also get information from these third-party platforms, SEMrush and Ubersuggest, which is by Neil Patel. Even their copy, like what words and images are they using in their ads? How much money are they spending? Like that in itself, like is worth so much. Unfortunately, you don't get this information for free. It is a paid investment. But if you are at the stage of your business where you're like, you know what, I want to lean in. I want to move forward with this gamble because that's what it feels like when you're a startup, right? Um, and even if you're an established small business, it does feel like a gamble. Like, is this really worth the time and investment? But if you're really wanting to lean in on your marketing, really want to lean in on specifically digital marketing, uh, paying that 1 or 2 months where it's like a couple $100 at least for a month or two. Getting that data can be just so powerful because you're not guessing anymore. Right?
Yeah, yeah. I know. Probably we wouldn't have thought of so many things that we actually need to consider. So, with that kind of enormous data, we definitely can take some, educated steps.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that it's all about getting you're not just going on instinct and just jumping in, right?
Right.
You have a little bit of a map. It's like back in the olden days before we had GPS in our cars, we'd pull up the map and we would look at it. We'd study, okay, I got to go to I-5 and then I'm going to get off on exit. What is that? And get the magnifier glass and you're like, okay, exit 24, right? And then you write down on your piece of paper all of the steps. Now, you can still get lost, right? Or you might find out that that really wasn't the area that you needed to go in, but you're not going all over the place blindly driving through streets and neighborhoods, right? You have a little bit more direction. And year after year, what ends up happening is eventually you get to a point where it's like you have so much of your own data as well as competitor data and user data or client data that it becomes an easy GPS where now your marketing ends up kind of going on auto running. Like it becomes a little bit self-driving where you're just fine tuning it here and there. But it's always that initial hurdle, that initial investment of time and money and resources. And when it comes to making those investments, you have to look at the hours that you spend doing free research, because when you do free research and looking at data and putting everything in a spreadsheet yourself, it takes time. It takes effort, and your time is worth money. The time that you're spending away from making your product or selling your service is money that you're losing, right? Because you're spending it on something else that isn't generating revenue, which is why you end up hiring eventually an intern. But before you hire the intern, pay the subscription or pay the one-time fee to get a month's worth of access of data, info dump it into a folder, and then you can always pull it up and reflect and make decisions from there.
Yeah, and also when I do the research myself, like an amateur, the results are definitely not guaranteed. So we don't know that. So it's better to give it to a professional who actually can help you out. Of course, if you can afford those couple $100, it's definitely worth it.
And the thing is that those $100, it saves you time. Like if it takes you 10 hours worth of research and you would, especially if you're a client-based company and you're like, well, I would be charging my client $110. So your 10 hours that you've spent doing market research and trying to go for free ends up costing you that time away from clients where you could have been making like $11,000, right? So that's the kind of math, the business math that you're going to be doing around marketing and around research, and especially when you're starting, your time and your finances are limited. So you almost have to begin negotiating with yourself like this, right? Which is always hard. I find it hard myself.
And how have you seen the market evolving, both from an institute, the educational institute standpoint, and also the real business world standpoint? How has it evolved?
I'm going to start with the real world. So AI has completely changed everything. And even academically, I tell my students, I was like, you have to use AI in this class for assignments. Because if you want to pursue a career in marketing, or if you are finding yourself doing marketing like jobs or setting up ads and stuff, if you're trying to do it yourself, you need to use AI. Now, don't blindly copy and paste whatever AI gives you, but use prompts such as, I have a marketing campaign that I want to do for No. 2 pencils. I specifically want to be on TikTok and Facebook. And my target audience is la 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 la, and I want to target this specific region. Help me develop a Google Ads campaign or social media campaign for this product. And what it will come out with is a really good first draft. Now, you as the human being, as the business owner, you do need to go in and you're going to need to edit the words, and you're going to need to change things and make it your own. But now you've just saved at least an hour of like raw, like storyboarding, writing on the wall, trying to figure out what you want to do, because it's given you options. Especially if you ask it, give me 5 different options, and it'll give you 5 different options, and then you go, well, let's see how this one would work. And then you can continue using AI, or you can shift to manual. But AI is going to be the big thing. Search engines are also changing too. Google AdWords is great, but more and more people are now using ChatGPT or other AI platforms to do research. So they're no longer Googling it. They are ChatGPTing it, or using AI. So whenever you have a website or a blog specifically, you are no longer optimizing for Google, right? Because that was the gold standard. You're not just optimizing for Google, you're now optimizing for AI, right? Because you want the AI to show your website link in that sources whenever it gives people answers, right? And then so that's when you're going to start making more content that's like tips, tricks, advice, giving answers, right? Even if it's giving the answer of your service, people are already going to search for it. They were already going to find your competitors. So how can you show up where your competitors aren't? So giving answers is always going to be, and providing value is always going to be the #1 thing to do. Another thing that is occurring, at least from my standpoint and where I am academically when I'm teaching my students, is I've kind of thrown out the textbook. I do have a textbook that I use, but now the textbooks that I'm selecting I'm making sure that it's that evergreen information. It's more about the psychology of marketing, the psychology of consumer behavior, because platforms themselves are ever changing. Algorithms are ever changing. The CEO of Instagram started giving out, actually telling marketers what the algorithm is prioritizing this month, which has been like, I've seen marketers like on videos like, oh, finally, I'm not having to guess. Like they're wiping away tears. So there's just so much that's going to be changing. And this also ends up being very difficult for small businesses and startups because it's constantly changing. So they're trying to juggle providing the product and service and doing the accounting and operations and billing, right? And then marketing is ever changing. It's constantly going through evolutions, and keeping up with those evolutions can be really, really difficult. And so that's once again, once you get to a point where, as far as the time you invest in marketing versus actually hiring somebody, once that equals the same, offload that responsibility as soon as possible.
Brilliant. That was fantastic. So let's find out from our audience, what is their favorite strategy? And do let us know in the comments. That'll be nice to find out from. And if you have more strategies, that'll be helpful to so many of us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chelsea. So moving on, what is the difference between marketing and promotion or advertising?
Oh, so there is a really good example about a circus. So I'm just going to pause for 2 seconds because I want to make sure that I get it right because it's really brilliant in describing those differences.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so um, I'm pulling this from a website called Brandettes. This is something that I've heard multiple times since for years and years. But if a circus was coming and you went looking for a site to pitch like the big top areas or big top like circuses, that would be like market research. If you painted a sign before the circus came to town announcing a circus is coming to town on Saturday, that is advertising. If you put a sign on the back of an elephant and marched it through town, that is promotion. And if the elephant, still with the sign on his back, tramples through the mayor's garden and it makes the evening news, that is going to be publicity. And if you get the mayor to laugh about it, that's public relations. And if you deliberately lead the elephant past schools and through residential neighborhoods, that is market segmentation. And when the town's residents come to your circus and you show them the array of games and treats and entertainment stalls and explain how fun they're going to have it and they're going to enjoy the circus performers and they're going to answer questions and show them all the different attractions so that the townspeople ultimately spend their hard-earned money at your circus, that is actually sales, right? And if you created, planned, and managed all of these activities, that is going to be marketing. So marketing isn't just social media. It isn't just digital ads. It isn't just a billboard. Marketing in itself is that market research, advertising, promotion, publicity, public relations, that market segmentation and sales. And there are people that specifically specialize in those things. But they're not the same. They're not created equal, right? They are different.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a fantastic example. Yeah. Could you also help us understand what is business branding and personal branding?
Mm-hmm.
Both are very, very important. And how do we actually build those brands?
Oh, I love this question because this was an early question within my career that I had to answer for a startup. So this startup that I was working with, their company. So shout out to Moxie Institute. Moxie Institute was the company that provided public speaking and communications training. They did speech writing, PowerPoints, etc. As well. And then we had Fia Fastfinder, their CEO. Now, Fia Fastfinder, she started the company, and she was the person that did all the things, right? She would outsource like creating the website, but she was the one that was writing the copy, right? She was the one that was finding pictures, etc. as she was starting out. And she leveraged her brand, her personal brand, Fia Fastfinder, as the CEO, especially when closing sales, because you were getting coached by Fia Fastfinder. You were getting coached by her, right? And then as the company grew and her time became more limited, we needed to shift the marketing focused on the institute, the Moxie Institute. Right. So that we could bring in other trainers. That way, if people were calling and they were like expecting to work with Fia, but she was completely booked out, we could call upon the other trainers and it wouldn't be such a shocking, like, oh, I thought I was going to get you. I wanted you. Right. Now you're getting the Fia Fastfinder's methodology within the Moxie Institute. So when you are doing personal branding, you are specifically promoting your expertise, your knowledge, your skill sets, right? And then your company is more of anyone that could be providing that service or selling that product under your company brand, right? Because eventually you're going to be so busy that you can't go to every sales call. You're going to be so busy where you can't be the person that's providing the training or being the person that's actually doing the accounting or taxes or whatever service you're providing. That's not going to be a good use of your time. You're going to have your hired people come in and provide those services or help provide those services. And so you have to make sure that while, yes, you are the main person right now, you have to be ready to separate yourself so that, because we're at the beginning, FIA Fastfinder and Moxie Institute were exactly the same. They were one entity. People did not separate them. So we had to separate them. And one way to do this is to write your own persona. So in marketing, when we are trying to find out who our target audience is, we create these personas, which is kind of like a fictional character where we talk about, who they are, the values, tone of voice, etc. So what you can do, even if the company and the CEO are one and the same right now, you can create almost like fictional personas where the CEO might talk a little bit more casual, might be a little bit more informal, while the company is going to maintain its formality, right? So those are some tips and tricks when you are writing out copy or writing out blogs or writing out social media posts. There's a way to differentiate that, but always in the beginning, it is going to be the same, but your personal brand, no matter what, is going to follow you throughout your career. So whether your company fails, which we don't want that to happen, but if it does, life happens, or if you're like, you know what, entrepreneurship is not for me, it is completely okay to pivot and go back to corporate or whatever you were doing before. Your personal brand stays with you no matter what. And so that's kind of like my general advice is recognizing in the beginning they are one and the same, but how you can differentiate them is usually by writing or how you're showing up, right? Yes, the CEO is representing the company, but the company itself has its own voice, right? There's a reason why when it comes to taxes, corporations are treated like individuals. So we're kind of doing that same thing as far as branding goes. We're treating the company as if it is its own individual person.
Awesome. So at this point, could you also address something called Q score?
Essentially, one way to do this is by, once again, looking at the customer reviews, the customer feedback, right? You're trying to take something that is qualitative, right? And making it quantitative so that you can properly measure it as well. But it's not something that it's used, but it's not, I wouldn't worry about it in the early stages of a business. Right.
Got you.
In the early stages of a business, that's like next level corporate, that's next level expansion, that's next level like franchising, which we want to get there. But since we've been kind of talking about small businesses and startups, I almost don't want to detract from that value.
Got it.
Going into the weeds of how do you measure your brand? Well, I would just do a simple sentiment analysis. How are people responding to your post? What are they using emojis, or are they using more negative words? What words are going to be popular? Kind of doing one of those word bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way that you can kind of see where are people going. But to get to that point where that information is going to be valuable is when you start getting into when your business is starting to ramp up. And so if your business is ramping up, yes, you want to kind of check on that, but I wouldn't focus on it until a little bit later.
Gotcha. All right. Mm-hmm. So let's say now we started our business and it is in a decent, stabilized way. So and people's choices are ever changing. So how can someone keep up with the trend yet maintain consistency?
That is always question that has a lot of uncertainty, right? Because
Yeah.
you want to stay relevant. My example would be that came top of mind when it comes to like trends and, you know, how are people like shifting and their preferences on content changing, etc. You have to be aware of jumping on quick trends. So for example, Duolingo killed their owl. It became a trend. It became this whole thing where everyone was wondering who killed the owl, right? I mean, it was brilliant that the marketing team was able to go forward and kill their like logo mascot, because it
No,
sparked.
I think you need to give a little context on
Yeah.
this
Okay.
one.
So
Yeah.
Duolingo, their mascot is an owl that gives you the side eye on your phone if you are not practicing a new language, or if you're not practicing your math or your piano. And they did a marketing campaign where leading up, this owl was starting to have beef, right, with a few different celebrities, was like calling them out or kind of like being snarky to them. And then he was also having beef with the Tesla trucks. Like they did a social media post with him just kind of like quote unquote, like smashing it, right? Not literally, but dissing it.
Yeah.
And so this bird who on your phone, on your widget, gives you side eyes, you'll get pop-up notifications that feel very judgmental, like your mom or your auntie is saying, why aren't you practicing? And then the marketing team was given the liberty to kill off the bird. They were like, oh no, Duolingo bird is dead. Who done? And like, that's all the information that we got. So the consumers that had been following them, that have their own beef with the side-eye owl, all of a sudden started speculating. People were like, well, did a Tesla truck hit the bird? Right? Because there was that social media post a couple of weeks back that, you know, where the bird was dissing on Tesla, or was it Drake that killed him? And then these were all just individual followers, right? Individual followers, not corporations yet. But because this trend got so big, other corporations like KFC did it, where they showed a little green feather in the chicken fryer. Like maybe KFC did bird. Then we had other companies like the Anaheim Ducks, who was the mascot was like walking down the street with like intense security, because now all the bird mascots were at risk, right? Were they being targeted? And but we also saw brands that jumped on this trend and were like trying to do like, oh, how's it relevant to me? And they failed at it. It wasn't relevant, right? It wasn't relevant. Like, fortunately, like companies like Estee Lauder did not jump on this trend. But if I'm going to use them as an example, if Estee Lauder had done a trend where they were like, how to do your makeup for the owl's funeral or something like that, it would have fallen flat, because that's a luxury makeup company, right? It wouldn't have felt relevant. Eventually, we find out the owl had faked his own death for insurance purposes. That was the conclusion of this marketing campaign story arc. But when it comes to trends, like if you are an accounting business, I wouldn't have jumped on the trend. But if I was a life insurance business, or I would have jumped on a little bit. I would have tried to make something kind of funny about like, oh, this is why, because Duolingo left behind a little kid. The story people at Duolingo, the marketing people, are just brilliant. Hats off to them. And so in an insurance company, I would be more inclined to jump on the trend, but not an accountant firm. If I was doing if I was an estate lawyer, maybe, but not a real estate or lawyer, or a divorce lawyer, right? That wouldn't be relevant. if I, going back to like my number 2 pencil, I wouldn't have done a post because the number 2 pencil didn't really feel relevant.
Mhm.
Other than maybe, I guess, saying, okay, well, now you can't use the app. Now you have to write out the language that you're learning. But even then, that kind of like falls flat. So going back, sorry, went off on a tangent because the Duolingo is just a beautiful case study, and great
It is.
of giving your marketing team and your writers the liberty and space to do their job well. Because if the traditional persona of a CEO was in the room and the marketing team said, hey, we want to kill the bird, that CEO would have been like, no, that's our icon, would have rejected that idea, right? Instead of giving the marketing team saying, okay, run with your vision, right? So when it comes to staying on trends, yes, you need to be aware of what is happening around you, right? But you don't need to jump on every audio trend. In fact, actually, for the most part, it's not recommended unless it is directly related to your product or is directly related to the emotion that you want your clients to have. With the number 2 pencil and with consumer products, it can be really easy to jump on those audio trends specifically. But for service companies, especially business to business companies, you're not speaking, yes, you're speaking to another business person that works there, an individual, but in reality, you're trying to establish the relationship with the company as a whole. So you need to, so that even if your point of contact with your client company leaves or gets sick, you still have a relationship with the company. So jumping on every trend isn't advisable. But I would say, don't make it always serious and don't always make it about sales. Make it about value. Making it, depending on the platform, like TikTok and maybe Instagram Reels, you want to be more personable. You want to be a little bit silly. There's videos of lawyers on TikTok where their marketer goes up to them and they say, hey, how do you say this verse of Taylor Swift's song in legalese? Right? And so you'll listen to the little clip of the song, the popular song, and then the lawyer will say, well, based off of the litigations of the so on and so forth. They use like the big lawyer speaking words. And that's funny. It's engaging, but it also shows that the lawyers know what they're talking about. The lawyers know how to properly represent you, no matter what situation. And so it can't always be serious. It can't always be about your product and service. It can be also about the knowledge, the skill set, and then adding in that personable element there too.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Right. And having all these knowledge in the background for a small business who is actually in the initial stages, how do you think they market without sounding too desperate? Because it's a new business, they have to put themselves out there, but you don't want to do it too much either. How can you balance that?
That is the most emotional hurdle I feel like business owners go through, right? Because you need the sales, you have gambled, you've gone part-time on your job, or you've quit your job and you're leaning into this and you really need to pay your mortgage, or you need to buy your kids new shoes, right? There is this intense anxiety and need and desperation. And other than going to a therapist, there's not much that you can do about that. Which I highly recommend. Startup businesses, like find a therapist because you're going to go through these emotional roller coasters again and again and again. One thing is about maximizing value no matter where you are, right? When you do a YouTube video, when you do a podcast, even this podcast, people know that you as the podcast host want them to like and subscribe, which by the way, like and subscribe, Do it now.
Ah.
Um, they want you to like it. They know that you want that, right? They know that you want that. They know that you want them to buy, right? To purchase, to sign a contract. That is known. Consumers know that. We know that nothing is really truly for free. But what we're trying to do is establish that expertise, establish that like quality, that knowledge. And so when you are starting off, you essentially need to give away the cow.
Mm.
You need to give away the cow. You need to give away the eggs. Okay, and I'm going to change animals. You need to give away the eggs, right? But you're going to keep the chicken. They don't have the chicken. So they're going to keep coming back for eggs until they are ready to buy one of your chicken's baby chicks, right?
Mm.
That's where that sale comes from. So you want to provide value through videos, you want to provide value through blogs and podcasts, or even just that sales call, right? I've been on sales calls to establish my credibility as a marketer. I went in and I had done my basic research on the company and I knew of their problem, but I jumped in already giving them quick solutions, right? Quick fixes to their problem, because they're calling you because they have a problem. They're calling you because they need a solution. They're at that point in their journey, and they're just at this point where they're trying to figure out, well, which solution do I go with? And so you can go in and provide value by saying, okay, let's break this problem down, or let's get specific about the actual results that you want. Not all pencils are created equal. There are pencils that have like very soft, and then you have pencils that are very hard. You have pencils that have really dark colors, and you have pencils that are like more of that lighter gray. There are pencils with erasers and not erasers. So you're kind of going into this like, let me solve, what pencil do you really need in your life right now? Oh, okay. What pencil do you already have in your drawer? And then they show you their pencils, and we're like, well, yeah, that pencil is pretty good. Yeah, they're a competitor, but they're pretty good. Like, you're not dissing on the competitor, you're not saying anything bad about the competitor. You're just kind of like, yeah, that wasn't a bad option, but obviously this isn't completely solving all your problems. So what
Mm.
do you not like about that? Right? Why are you leaving that competitor, or that that would be my, why are you leaving that other company and trying to find a new product or trying to find a new service? So going in and providing that value and kind of digging in a little bit deeper, it's time consuming because it's a lot of content creation, or it's a longer discovery call. So instead of a 30-minute consultation, you're going to be doing an hour-long discovery call, trying to actually figure out the correct solution. And one of the biggest things that I have seen that, once again, it becomes that long term, right, is actually saying when you are not the right solution for somebody. Because the worst thing that you can do is kind of push somebody into purchasing your product so that you can get a little money in your pocket. But what ends up happening is they're not going to be satisfied. And so that word of mouth that travels is going to have a bigger negative impact on you. So it's not just about the sales of today, but also the sales and relationship building of tomorrow. So those are just like a few thoughts, but it's really hard to give that value away with that complete trust. You have to almost have complete trust in yourself that people need you. People need you. They need your podcast. They need your the value that you bring from your podcast. They need the blog. They need the webinar. They need this, right? They need to purchase. That is there, and having that faith that it's there. But there's a reason why companies go in the red. Companies that succeed go in the red that first year or two, because they are jumping in full faith. And part of the reason why they go in red is because they're taking out those business loans, which, by the way, I recommend getting a business card even before you even think about having business, so that you can build up your business's credit score.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that previously.
Right, the bank account you're mentioning,
Yeah,
right?
not just like the banking and checking, but also get the business credit card too, so that the when it comes time when you do need a loan or when you need to heavily invest, you have that credibility.
Right.
So this kind of like goes into like a little bit of like the finance aspect and trusting the business. But as far as marketing goes, customers know that you want them, right?
Mm.
What you're trying to do is say, well, this is a long relationship. This is a long relationship. I'm going to be there for you. And if it means that you give them an hour of your time, then you give them an hour of your time. But it's that long-term value and investment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it'll all go back to the research and finding your niche, your the target audience, and then it's a slow but it's a beautiful collaboration of both the provider and the consumer. I
That is.
think, yeah.
I like how you said it's a beautiful relationship, because it is. It is a relationship. It's a collaboration. It's a partnership. Even if you're just selling number 2 pencils, right? There's still a relationship that occurs, whether the customer is conscious of it or not. You have a
Mhm.
relationship with them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was another intended questions. Is there anything more which you would like to add? Any words of wisdom or anything that?
Oh, yeah. So one other change that we're seeing, specifically on social media,
Mhm.
is the call to action. The biggest advice, the basic 101 of marketing, is to have a call to action. Whether it's liking, subscribing, commenting, right? All of that. But what we're finding is that it customers are tuning that information out. They're tuning you out when you have that. So you do need to come up with creative ways of saying buy now in your videos, to coming up with creative ways that are almost indirect, right? And what you need from them. And when you're looking on social media, cannot specifically, because this is where I see a lot of people stumble, is on social media. It is supposed to be social. So your main goal should be about engagement. Your main goal should be about establishing value, right? Brand awareness. Sales is still going to be a big part of it, but if you are a business to business company like accounting or being a lawyer, then doing direct sales on social isn't going to be as valuable, and you're not going to see that immediate return because the traditional sales funnel is broken. So you have 2 elements going on. People are tuning out those basic call to actions, and because they already know what you want, right? They don't need to hear you say it. So you have to have different ways of saying it. Then the other element is that traditional like sales funnel where you're able to track people in where they go in finally making the purchase is not always trackable. So for example, and I explained this to my hairdresser, and I was like, hey, look, yes, most of your clients come from Google, or most of your clients from Google and Yelp for your hair cutting services. However, I was like, mine is a classic example, which is I'm not just going on Google and Yelp. I might find you first on Yelp, and then I'm going to my desktop and I'm going to look at I'm going to go from my desktop to my phone, and I'm going to look on your Instagram to see your portfolio. And then a few days are going to pass, and then I might come across, remember that, oh, I need to get my hair cut. So I'm going to go to your Facebook to see what your clients have to say, what type of presence, like, are you established or are you new? And then finally, a few days later, when I'm ready to actually book, I'm going to be on Google, or I'm going to book through Yelp, the more traditional sites, not through Instagram, not through Facebook. But Facebook and Instagram were a vital element in my decision making. So that's kind of like what we're looking at. When you are a service-based company, is you're not necessarily saying sales, 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 but saying, okay, I got a sale from Google, and asking your client when they come in, oh, did you happen to check us out on Instagram? and asking those questions live. And don't just use a form that only allows you to select one thing, because in reality, they have gone through several different things. That was the same with my accountant. Started off on Google, then I narrowed down a list of 3, then I did additional research, then I did check out their social, specifically LinkedIn. And then when I remember when we first did our consultation, I even made a comment to my husband that they had like, how did you hear about us? And I could only select one. And I was like, but I did research. Like, it can't just be one. You have to go under the assumption that it is all encompassing.
Right. That's so true. Yeah, it is not limited to only one or two. There are multiple.
Yeah, the sales journey is now like all over the place,
Yeah.
which you have to, like, once again, look at things holistically, looking at your social media data and your website data and your Google data, like, and seeing that, oh, well, yes, I didn't get any direct website visits from my social to my website, but how many of the people that were on my website actually went to my social? How many of the am I seeing an uptick at around the same time of day or time of the week where my website search views spike, and also my social also spiked that same day too? That means that people are going over there and checking it out at the same time. So that's how you can kind of like look at this correlation, and so that you can actually figure out like what actually caused that final sale. So for me, it was the Instagram, but I booked through Google. For my hairdresser, for my accountant, it was LinkedIn, but I booked through Google. Like, I went through Google and then went to their website to finish the search. So that's because Google isn't talking to LinkedIn. LinkedIn isn't talking to Instagram. And so this is where you're missing out on that data and that information. So you have to start remembering that there is going to be this disconnect. So you have to go under that, guys. So
Yeah. So on the back end of all these companies, always keep track of your analytics. That's where you have your first data.
Yeah, that's your
Right?
primary data. That is actually going to be the most valuable. And then, like I said, always be looking at your competitors with a side eye. Like, are they having an uptick in the same day of the week as you did? And if they are, then are those customers, those visitors of the website, is that actually the same person going back and forth? Right? Or is it like a general group of people going back and forth? So that means that you could potentially be in competition with them. So this is the fun aspect of analytics, is once you have it, you can be like, ooh, like, I see the answers. Okay, so if I am going to be competing against the pen company versus the pencils, like, I can adjust my sales pitch, right? I can emphasize the value of a pencil versus a pen, because the pencil can erase. The pen can't.
Right.
The pen causes anxiety when you're writing down something, while the pencil gives you the freedom and flexibility. That's what we're looking at. Yeah.
Oh, that was so nice. That was beautiful.
Yeah. I should start selling pencils.
Oh yeah.
Marketing
You,
goblins pencils.
yeah, you must. You must. It's fun.
Would actually have fun with that.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout this whole conversation, I know that being a startup or being in a small business where you are the main person that's delivering services, it can always feel so nerve-wracking. But you're not the only person that's been in this position. Yes, your struggles are going to be unique, and trying to figure out those marketing answers and questions is going to be hard, right? And then taking that leap of faith, actually making that first move, is always super hard. And those videos that you see where it's all like, this is how I got 10,000 followers in 10 days. Those are a little bit of lies, because those people did research. Those people went in with a full-on strategy that took several months to make. It wasn't just poof, I did it. No, it was long, hard research and thinking and problem solving. And then usually they're also marketers, so they're also trying to sell you the service by making you feel overwhelmed. So beware of those. Remember to breathe in and breathe out, and you got this, right?
Right. Give it time to grow, and it'll grow naturally and very beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Awesome. Yeah. So we have this fast 5 questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
You could give me either a word or a sentence long answer.
Okay.
What is the best advice you ever received?
It's okay to pivot. It's okay to change your mind.
Cool. If you could outsource one portion of marketing, what would it be?
Doing the clickety clicks on Meta. Actually doing the post on the platforms. Like, I'll do content creation all day, but it is so annoying when those sites, especially Meta, glitches on you and it takes forever to upload one photo that you plan to send out in 2 weeks. So I'm not a huge fan. So I would outsource the actual physical movement of my mouse.
Got you. If you were not what you are today, what would you be?
Oh, that is a hard question to ask. What would I would probably I'd probably be in content creation. Like right now I have my own like consulting business where I help the small businesses and startups, and then I've kind of made this shift into teaching. But I also have these content creation ideas of like going and doing these skits that are more personal, right? So I'm not even actually fully leaving the area that I'm an expert in or that I'm already touching. Sorry, that was a long answer.
That's okay. That's okay. Because that was a hard question.
No, that was a hard. Yeah, you threw me a curveball there.
All right. What is your one advice to new entrepreneurs?
Do not underestimate the power of research. Don't underestimate it. I feel like so many people, they just want to go and get to the end, or they think that they have the answer. And even if you do have the answer, being able to verify it and get it confirmed, it just gives you so much more power, because those moments of hesitation, those moments of anxiety, those moments of like, what did I just do? What am I getting myself into? You're going to have that reassurance because you're like, nope, I did the numbers, I did the research. I know what this path is going to look like. I know I'm going to be in the red for the first year, but then after that, I'm going to be making that money back. So using that quantitative logical is what I would recommend. Yeah.
Cool. One word to describe you?
Chaotic.
Oh.
But in a good way. Good chaos. Good chaos.
Yeah.
Productive. Yeah.
Productive, yes. Absolutely brilliant. That was so much fun, Chelsea. Thank you so much for your time and your insights.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was really cool. Amazing. Thanks so much. I wish you all the best.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And remember, like and subscribe.
Yay, please. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.